So here's the thing. I'm fully aware, right from the start, that what I'm about to share is going to make me sound like, well, a bit of a jerk. Maybe even a lot of a jerk to some people. And you know, I'm bracing myself for the backlash and criticism that will almost certainly follow. But still, I feel like I need to put it all out there, every single thought, without leaving anything important out, because honestly, I really need to vent. And maybe, just maybe, get some insight from different perspectives, you know? So, buckle up because this story is a roller coaster, and it's going to be a long one. Alright, here we go. It all started a year ago, actually, a year and 1 month ago, to be exact. My girlfriend went through something that, honestly, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. She was violently attacked right as she was leaving work. Fortunately, and I mean thankfully, she wasn't killed. But terrifyingly, her attacker did threaten her with a weapon, which sent shivers down my spine when I first heard it. Luckily, the store where she works had surveillance cameras set up in the parking lot, and between those cameras and the bank across the street managing to catch the attacker's car on tape, the police were able to track this guy down super quickly. Like, within a day. It felt like a minor miracle in the midst of a nightmare. When they caught him, the evidence was, honestly, just overwhelmingly stacked against him. Between the video footage and the DNA testing, he knew there was no point in even pretending to be innocent. He pleaded guilty, hoping that cooperating would soften the blow of his sentence. Because there were aggravating factors, like the weapon, the judge handed him a 20-year sentence. With good behavior, though, he could be out in, about 10 years. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. So, that's the situation. Her attacker is locked away, and she won't have to worry about him, at least not for a long while. But here's where things get complicated. Obviously, what happened was unimaginably traumatic for her. I mean, it was life-altering in ways I can't even begin to fathom. And while I wasn't the victim myself, it was pretty traumatic for me too. Yeah, I know it doesn't compare to what she went through. There's no way it could. But believe me, there were nights when the depression hit me so hard because, well, I just couldn't do anything to stop it. I couldn't protect her, and the helplessness of knowing that someone else had hurt her so profoundly, it sometimes felt like more than I could handle. Right after the incident, she couldn't bear to see me. And you know, I get it. Really, I do. It stung, but I understood. Her parents were the ones who picked her up from the hospital, and after that, I didn't hear from her for an entire week. It was a long, painful silence, and sure, a tiny part of me wondered if I might have gotten at least a small text or something. Just a little sign that she was okay. Finally, after 7 days, her sister calls me. She lets me know that my girlfriend is staying with their parents, and that she'll be reaching out to me in a couple of days. But she didn't call me herself. Instead, I got another message from her sister, asking if I could come over for a few minutes to talk. So off I went, not really knowing what to expect. Her mother met me at the door, and wow, she was so composed and almost chillingly calm. She laid out all these instructions for me, how I was supposed to act, what I was allowed to say, and most importantly, how I wasn't allowed to touch my girlfriend. No hugs, no hand-holding, no physical contact whatsoever. It felt, well, strict, but I understood. Major trauma, right? I figured they'd probably consulted with therapists or counselors about how to handle all of this, so I went along with it. When I finally walked into the room, there she was, sitting in a chair, looking so small and fragile. Her dad stood protectively beside her, and her sister was sitting on the couch. As I stepped in, her sister took over the conversation. She explained that my girlfriend wanted me to know she was okay, even if it didn't seem that way. She was still deeply traumatized, obviously, and she appreciated my understanding. And here's the thing, my girlfriend didn't say a single word to me during that entire encounter. Not one. She barely even made eye contact. The whole scene was awkward, incredibly so, but I tried to push through, convincing myself this was just the way it had to be. I left, went home, and tried to focus on how I could support her. I turned to Google, reading everything I could about how to help a survivor of trauma, what to expect, how to be there for her. She began therapy, twice a week at first. Then, after a couple of months, she scaled back to once a week. In the meantime, she finally reached out, We met up at a coffee shop. I got there first, only to see her already sitting and waiting. It was almost surreal. And to be honest, it was like talking to a ghost of her former self. They had her on so many medications that she seemed numb. Her speech was slow, methodical, and devoid of the spark she used to have. Basically, she sat me down and told me she couldn't date me, at least for a while. She needed space to work through her issues. Of course, I told her I understood, even though it hurt. By then, a whole month had passed since the attack, and this was the first time we were having a conversation alone. I'd already resigned myself to the idea that we wouldn't be picking up where we left off, so I assured her that I'd be there for her, in whatever way she needed. Space, a shoulder to cry on, anything. I tried to say, "I love you," but she cut me off, asking me not to say that. Respecting her wishes, I bit my tongue, even though it stung. The next day, she started texting me. Little things, nothing important, but it felt like a step forward. This went on for a month and a half. Feeling a tiny bit hopeful, I asked if we could go out for dinner. 2 days passed before she replied, and even then, she said she had to check with her therapist first. Eventually, she agreed, but she set the date for another month away. So here I was, almost 4 months after the attack, and we'd had just one actual conversation alone and one super awkward one with her whole family. I wasn't getting any updates about her progress from anyone. Her parents, her sister, nobody. And okay, I get that I'm not officially family or anything, but a small update would have been nice. Just a text or a call letting me know if therapy was helping or not, anything really. When we finally met for dinner at our favorite little bistro, I got there early and waited for half an hour before she showed up. She walked in, and when I asked how she'd been, she snapped at me, telling me not to ask personal questions. Ouch. We ate mostly in silence, and afterward, I tried to talk to her. I just missed talking to her, you know? But she said she was ready to leave, and I didn't want to push her. I told her I loved her and missed her. She just walked away. The next day, she went back to texting me, as if nothing had happened. Gradually, we started meeting for lunch once a week. I could see her becoming more comfortable in public, and she would actually sit and talk with me. She even got a new job and told me about it. This went on for another 4 months. I was happy to see her improving, but I was also growing increasingly lonely. We still hadn't held hands or shared even the smallest physical connection. Then one day, she didn't show up for our lunch date. I texted, but there was no reply. Panic set in. I called her parents to see if she was okay, but they were evasive, giving me the runaround. When I finally asked outright if she was alright, her mom told me, in a clipped tone, that she was fine, but that I shouldn't expect to hear from her for a while. That made my mind race, and I started to wonder if she'd had a setback, maybe even ended up in the hospital. But there was nothing I could do except go home and try to distract myself. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of silence, and it felt like I was losing my mind. Desperate for some sign that she was okay, I called her sister. My frustration was probably obvious, and she apologized, explaining that my girlfriend had specifically asked them not to let me talk to her. That was the breaking point. I felt utterly defeated, like I'd done everything right, tried so hard to be there for her without pushing, and yet I was still kept at arm's length. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from her. She wanted me to meet her at this unfamiliar address. I looked it up and realized it was a therapist's office. So I left work early, showed up, and checked in. The therapist greeted me and asked to speak to me alone first. She went through yet another list of do's and don'ts. At that point, I knew where my girlfriend's family had been getting all these rules. Then, she told me that my girlfriend had something important to say and felt safer doing it in the therapist's office. I walked in, and there she was, sitting with a box of tissues, clearly having been crying. The therapist explained that my girlfriend wanted to share something with me in a safe space. And then, she dropped a bombshell. She told me that the reason she hadn't shown up for lunch that day was because she had been with another man. Someone from her new job. And they had been intimate. It felt like a knife to the gut. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. I just dropped my head and cried. The therapist jumped in with some explanation about how reclaiming her sexuality was part of her healing process, and how this wasn't the same kind of cheating. I was too stunned to comprehend it. My girlfriend kept talking, saying she didn't want to lose me, that she was just so messed up in her head that it was a one-time mistake. But in that moment, I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in. I blurted out, through my tears, that I had waited patiently, not even trying to hold her hand for over half a year, while she went and slept with someone else. My voice rose, and she burst into tears. The therapist asked me to leave, and I did, apologizing for my outburst. Later, she texted me, apologizing, begging me to talk to her. I told her I wasn't sure if I could move past this, but I agreed to meet up. When we met, I laid down my terms. If there was any hope of us moving forward, she had to cut off all contact with this guy. She said that wasn't possible because they worked together. I told her that wasn't going to work for me, and she ended up agreeing to find a new job. My sister, who I confided in, said that some women do have intimacy soon after trauma as a way to reclaim control. But I couldn't shake the hurt of why it hadn't been me. She got a new job, and we continued our weekly lunch dates. But I was tired. So tired of just lunches and nothing more. When I brought it up, she finally agreed to come over to watch TV. Progress, I thought. But that was it, until tonight. She came over, we watched movies, and ate pizza. During the second movie, I leaned in for a kiss. Just a simple kiss. She pulled away, like I was something dangerous. It hurt, and I snapped. I told her that it had been over a year, and I hadn't pushed her or asked for anything, yet she'd willingly been with someone else. She started crying, and I wasn't as quick to apologize this time. I did, eventually, apologize for my tone, but I said I felt like I'd been kept on the outside, cheated on. I'd done everything to support her, and yet I felt utterly empty inside. I told her not to text me until I figured out what I was going to do. I don't want to be unfair to her, but a year is a long time, and we're still so far from normal. I have no idea how long this will take. And, if I'm being brutally honest, I'm tired of the lack of intimacy. I understood at first. Even months later, I got it. But over a year has passed, and it's just not enough for me anymore. Knowing she's been with someone else while I've waited feels like it's tearing me apart. So, I told her I'd think about it, and promised we'd talk next week. But right now, I feel like I'm done. I love her, and I hate the man who destroyed our lives. I know it's not her fault, and I hate feeling like the bad guy no matter what choice I make. If I stay, I'll be resentful, and even if she suddenly wanted to be intimate, it would feel forced or pity-driven. Yet, if I leave, it's like punishing her for something she had no control over. I'm stuck. So there it is. Way too long, but if you made it this far, I guess I'm just looking for advice.